As India moves towards the joint commands, what types of weapons will become more critical and which legacy preferences may become less relevant, especially given the situation of our neighborhood at the moment?
See, with progress of joint commands, we have already seen one very live demo of how joint operations went through. The previous two conflicts that have occurred in our neighborhood, that is Operation Balakot, that was in 2019, and now Operation Sindoor, which recently took place. You would see there is a marked shift between the forces that were involved. If you remember, it was purely an Air Force operation during Balakot, but now when Operation Sindoor took place, the operation was completely a joint operation. You had Navy doing their part, also Army engaging their part of targets allotted to them, and also Air Force parallelly operating. Though the distribution of tasking and engagement would be different between the services, but you would see even the press statement which was released, it was given by all three forces. No force was operating in isolation. Everything was joint and most of the targets were jointly controlled. I'll give you a very particular example or very peculiar example that took place. The entire world, through all the data available in open source, was aware that there were a lot of swarm drones which were flying in through the enemies, the neighborhood, through the Pakistani side towards the Indian bases. The air defense systems were overwhelmed with swarm drones. On the Indian Air Force side, there was a very decisional dilemma that whether to engage these swarm drones. It was very uneconomic, or the cost of engaging them was very high. You cannot engage a very costly missile to shoot down a very cheap drone. But in this case, the army had been maintaining those vintage anti-aircraft guns. Now those guns were the perfect system to engage these swarm drones. So most of the places where the army air defense were assisting the Air Force systems, or they were protecting the Air Force bases, they engaged these small scale swarm drones and the accuracy was very high. So this particular example is very relevant of how warfare is changing and how things are progressing. So this is a particular example, and I think there's nothing better to explain how joint operations and joint commands would see things in future.